Ayyubids versus English, it's not a matchup that you super commonly see on Dry Arabia.
Yeah, I feel like usually the Ayyubids pick and the English pick, it's kind of some other maps, but enough about talking. We'll get into the matchup here in a little bit, but we're jumping right on into the game, seeing kind of these starting builds, seeing these starting colors. GiveUA is in the color purple, and NyanRacingCat is in the color orange.
Oh, purple English, that's not something that you see every day, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's usually reserved for the Byzantine player.
Now, NyanRacingCat, he played against Mr. Munch just a couple of hours ago. He was able to take a bit of a break, whereas this is the first series of the day for GiveUAnxiety. But I guess one big advantage that GiveUA comes into the set with is the fact that he was able to watch NyanRacingCat play live. And even once he was done, he could just go back in a VOD and check out all the things that he has done. So in terms of that, there is definitively an advantage for GiveUA.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny because I think me and you have talked about this previously where it's like, you know, would you rather just play back-to-back series or would you rather be able to kind of scout out your opponent? And some players prefer one, some players prefer the other. I definitely think it's a huge advantage to be able to see some of the strategies, especially with the new changes that have happened. Is Nyan going to try to shake something up and maybe go with, like, you know, a bizarre wing here and do some gambling? I doubt it, but you never know.
Is it bizarre or bizarre?
You know, you can either way you want to word it. It definitely still counts for both.
Well, I'm curious about the Ayyubids pick here, though, from NyanRacingCat, because this is not something that we've seen from him in the series that he's played before. And one of the things I've seen from him in the previous series that he played earlier today was that he definitely felt like he had a couple of these hidden strategies out there. His builds weren't along the lines of standard builds. And I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful that he's got something cooked up for this series as well. Some hidden strats, some sneaky approaches. Listen, if he wins this one, he is in the top 4.
And that's a huge, you know, successful trip for him. I want to say coming into the series, he was going to be happy just to take a series. I think even just to take a game. And here he is battling against GiveUA, trying to get into the top 4. It is going to be the Abbey of the Kings for GiveUA. He went with the Council Hall in one of the games earlier today or yesterday, and he immediately, or, yeah, it must have been yesterday, and he said, I think that was a mistake. I fall into the trap of the old English, and you got to play with the way the new players play.
Looks like it's going to be the Villager Wink here for NyanRacingCat. Now, what I'm interested in, and this is something that we've seen in the Soldier set, we've seen this new iteration of the Ayyubid Fast Castle where you just rush feudal and then you go with the industry option for your castle age, and that basically gives you a fast castle, semi-fast castle plus 2 TC build. And I'm a very big fan of that build. Looks like it's not going to be the one that NyanRacingCat goes for. He's not going to rush feudal here. He's just going for the extra vills.
Yeah, and the extra vills is always just that nice little boost to the eco, kind of get you on that kind of higher level footing, and then from there he can decide if he wants to play a more heavily feudal aggressive game, if he wants to try to deny a second TC from the English, which is sure to come with the Abbey of the Kings build.
Yeah, it looks like he's not moving towards stone, though. He is heavy on the wood, but I really have a creeping feeling that we're going to see NyanRacingCat aiming for Castle Age over here. Indeed, he is actually moving a lot of villagers on gold. That's probably your biggest sign.
Yeah, your 4 villagers is way too many to just be getting eco upgrades, and obviously, you know, not even having a blacksmith. He has blacksmith upgrades, so should be planning on the typical Ayyubids fast castle build. The question's going to be is, you know, how far delayed is GiveUA going to be with the English, you know, 2 TC? A lot of times you'll see the king delay, causing that idle time on the gold, even if there is a tower.
Yeah, that's the concern I'm having here for NyanRacingCat. You do have a king coming at you, and when you look at the gold and berry spots for NyanRacingCat, both of those are to the front, so this king really has a lot of targets to work with.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if Nyan maybe has to alter his build a little bit, maybe drop a barracks, and sure enough, barracks is being dropped now just to deter away that king early on. It's one that I think this is a necessary thing to do, even though it feels bad, because an outpost, you know, it's only a little bit less wood, and now he'll be able to just drop a couple spears out and successfully not worry about idle time.
He's going to commit early into that Rax, and GiveUA is looking for potential targets for that king right away with the scout. He is going to see the barracks, though. So from the very beginning, he's conscious of the fact that his opponent is investing into those spears for defense. I love these walls, though. Because here's the thing, and this is something that we see so frequently. You do have a wood line, and you don't really have vision beyond a certain angle. And the knight or a king, any kind of this charge-based cavalry unit can just appear and pick off a villager, because by the time you see it, it's too late.
Yep. And dropping these little short walls, very, very minimal investment, and it's also going to cause some annoying pathing for that king if he's trying to circle back around or dive through the berry villagers into the wood line. But we did see GiveUA's TC location right behind the gold a little bit, just obviously planning on matching up that faster castle.
Yeah, he's playing very condensed, and he decided not to put that TC on food. Although, to be fair, the food spots are horrible for both of these players. Deer packs are very much up front, wide open. So even for GiveUAnxiety, going for that primary deer pack would have been kind of suicidal. Well, not suicidal, it's not like he's being threatened, but it would have been a weird DC spot, that's for sure. But he's going heavy on the gold as well. So as you said, this is basically a race towards Castle Age now.
Yep, and the question is, you know, Nyan had those couple extra villas. If he does go up with Industry, he might be too far delayed. GiveUA using that micro advantage body block attempt from Nyan, but GiveUA still able to secure up the build, but King, 2 health.
Calculated.
It is all calculated, and not only that, Nyan, he's chasing around. Oh, okay, there we go. Pulls back that villager. Didn't want to chase too far, but absolutely just crazy ability to get out at that just little bit of health, and we see that dead villager body on the ground.
It's a big hit because, again, this is a race to Castle Age, and even if you go second TC for NyanRacingCat, the follow-up is going to be crucial, and even the timing is going to be crucial. Beating your opponent to Castle Age by 10-15 seconds could be the difference between you being able to sneak a dervish out or not.
Yeah, and you can already see that GiveUA was able to take over the villager count with the second TC and with that kill that he was able to pick up. And look at how quick that King's able to heal under the Abbey, and he will be circling around doing the exact same thing. We see 2 spears was not enough to deter the King from diving of resource.
Yeah, it looks like NyanRacingCat is going to have the advantage going into Castle Age, though. He hasn't used up his quick age-up ability, though, and I feel like this might be the time. He might not play 2 TC here, just the standard Ayyubid fast castle.
Yep, we will see here in just a second. Has the resources to click up and is choosing the dervishes. Whoa! Shout out to Soccerton, as I know this is one of the age ups that he loves. You're able to just secure the relics so quickly, but what does this do for the long-term game as far as the eco counts? Because he's already dropping behind and will be falling fast.
Yeah, I feel like the concern here is that sure, you're going to be able to secure the relics very quickly, but you could argue that, you know, just rushing Castle Age and building up the monastery to get the dervishes out kind of accomplishes the same thing. At the end of the day, the problem is that this is a standard age-up timing, so it will take quite some time for NyanRacingCat to get the castle. In fact, you can see that GiveUA almost has the resources he needs as well. It's basically going to be even Stevens when it comes to Castle Age timing.
Yeah, and with the industry, just like you were talking about, it would allow him to drop the moss, but also have a production building to help escort those as well. King is still roaming. 3 spears might be enough to escort some of those dervishes out, but still not the easiest with the immobile units.
Now, GiveUA is likely going to age with the White Tower, and that means that he's going to have a good amount of knights being produced. That could make life very difficult for these dervishes. At the same time, going super heavy into knights is not a good thing to do in this matchup, because that's exactly what NyanRacingCat wants, him probably aiming to make Camel Lancers.
Yeah, oh, Camel Lancers, lovely unit. Obviously, you know, sometimes you'll see some Desert Raiders, even, you know, even without having that military military wing in. GiveUA doing a lovely scouting job, seeing Nyan move out to the berries, so I'm sure that that will be a King raiding spot.
And Nyan didn't see him, so it's one thing that GiveUA knows about the spot, but Nyan is not certain that his opponent knows.
I don't know exactly what he was fully deciding where he wanted that tower. Oh, you know what he did is he dropped it a little half tile too close. He wanted to make sure he had a full set of farms behind. He's been watching Divine.
No, I thought he was watching the soldier set, and he was contemplating dropping it in the face of the opponent.
You know, that is one where I think he might have changed the idea if Nyan's scout had been lost. There's no vision, there's no military, but nope, playing a little bit safer, playing a little bit more secure. Didn't want to make the statement play like his brother did the first game.
I don't know what's up with this game right now, but I keep hearing town center bells.
I heard a relic get picked up, so that is
I heard that too.
Yeah.
But I keep hearing TC bells near GiveUA's base. Whichever way, relics are coming in, and I actually remembered that you get 2 dervishes, but I guess it's 3 when you go to castle. That makes it a lot better, because now you can just insta-pick up 3 relics. And GiveUA, he's starting to add the knights, but by the time that happens, his opponent is going to have the majority of the relics, and there is a second town center after all. It's not going to come from industry. I absolutely love having a second TC here. And I don't think it's like severely delayed. He's going to be down by 11, 12 villagers by the time this finishes. But in exchange, he's going to have all these relics for him.
Yeah, he'll have that long-term passive gold. We can already see he has 1 secure, 2 more being brought back in. And the other 2, yeah, one's pretty close to GiveUA's base, but I still think that is easily securable for Nyan.
It is. Like, this should fall into the hands of Nyan, and I think he should be able to sneak out the dervish as well to the north. Remember, GiveUA only has 2 knights, and the dervishes are fast. You can just kind of creep closer, and if you're threatened, you can drop the relic and just flee.
Yep, and he even has a Camel Lancer going to escort and make sure that that last relic will be able to come on home. Dervish even doing some healing on the scout.
Nice body block.
Body block and healing on the scout, as well as Villager. Look at this micro from Nyan, making sure that 1 single knight is not going to do any damage.
Talk about the micro for Nyan. One of the sickest things I've seen from him is how he controls his keyboard. Have you seen that?
Oh my God. It is actually hilarious. It is so funny because he's constantly, he uses the arrow keys to move his camera for those that aren't aware. And oh no, though, more villagers are falling. It was just 1 building the wall, and the second one healed by the dervish yet again. Wololo coming in. Wololo coming. Oh. Able to keep that villager alive. Those dervishes are doing God's work with that healing.
I mean, virtually and figuratively as well. Nevertheless, it's still a lot of idle time. You had to pull 10 or so villagers, and it's getting concerning for NyanRacingCat. Like, he's getting some Camel Lancers out, but now crossbows are appearing, and his berries are being pushed here. So, sure enough, he's got the relics, but you feel like these knights are causing so much distraction and chaos.
Yeah, I really feel like he almost has to just give this location and maybe invest more into where his second TC is, maybe try to get that wall in front of the deer, in front of the next gold. But for now, just kind of staying concise into his base, dropping the second moss, so getting some extra gold flow, gold income. Looks like he attempted a little bit of some raiding on the backside, causing some idle time as well, but no villager picks yet for Nyan.
Yeah, it's a lot of idle time, though. So many farmers just having to sit there and chill. What is concerning for Nyan is that he doesn't really have a good response to mass crossbows, and GiveUA is now switching entirely into crossbowmen. He stopped producing knights. He's only producing crossbows. He actually has a lot in queue.
Yeah, and it looks like Nyan does have that double range, but he is going with crossbows yourself, and it never feels good when you're going with the same unit and your opponent was ahead of you and is already at double digits.
Camel Lancers, though, hunting down the king and the knight here, and this is going to be a nice cleanup. This could be a concern for GiveUAnxiety, though. If he loses all the cavalry, these Camel Lancers can raid him, and his crossbows will be too slow to catch up.
Yep, and that is where, as the walls continue to get built, this little smaller crossbow mass that's behind the base is very easily able to be cleaned up. Nyan throwing away a Camel Lancer for some more idle time. Not a trade that you want to make.
And it's interesting because we're seeing a men-at-arms pivot here from GiveUAnxiety, and I think the other thing that the production has shown to us is that there seems to be a very severe production bottleneck for GiveUA. Like, this build-up is just so slow.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of, in queue, we see 5 crossbows, 6 men-at-arms, but it just doesn't feel like they are coming out fast enough. Tons of resource income, though, for him.
Looks like the king might actually make it all the way back home. NyanRacingCat having to just evacuate this one position. The final relic has not been claimed by him. For now, he's kind of just focused on surviving.
The big benefit for him now, though, is he should be able to clean up this little 6 crossbow mass, 2 Camel Lancers diving in, and also has secured walls during this timing, too.
Yeah, the trick with crossbows is that in small groups, they're not effective. You need a big mass, otherwise armored units overwhelm you.
Exactly, and that's where we just saw it. Crossbows are not typically the unit I would expect to be the little raiding party on the backside.
And there's a second wave. It's going to get even worse. because now we're seeing some archers, some spearmen arrive as well, and spearmen are reasonable when it comes to cost efficiency against crossbows.
Yeah, and this is another one where, like, it feels bad when you slowly are trickling in these units, and if you're not getting idle time or villager picks for this, this is essentially just kind of resources down the drain. Looks like Nyan spotted out the other small grouping, wants to go clean that up first.
Yeah, GiveUA is up by 15 eco, but as you said, he's kind of trickling in units. And I don't know how long he can sustain this. We haven't really seen, I don't know how many farms he has, but I don't know how long this is sustainable. If he's got a good farming eco, this might be worth it, because NyanRacingCat is nowhere close to farming, so just shutting down these berries and being aggressive might pay off.
And that's exactly where I know GiveUA, he had at least had 3 sets of farm. Looking at the mini-map, looks like he might have gotten his 4th set in, and now just drops his 5th set. So you are 100% correct. He will be free and clear as far as his food income goes. And Nyan, still in this pocket eco that's behind his walls, and will need to have his own farms. 42 farms for GiveUA already.
That's sick. That is sick. One of the coolest features of the English is the discount on the farms. I absolutely adore that. It just makes it so much easier to make this farm transition. And he was able to do this while spamming out all these troops on the field as well.
And you say the discount. It's not even just the discount in the farms. It's also the better gathering rate on those farms. You're looking at the income per minute. He's keeping up with Nyan, who's on deer, who's on multiple deer packs, and not on these farms. And GiveUA is, which should be a weaker gathering resource.
Heavy switch from GiveUA into men-at-arms, however, and he's facing a lot of crossbows. So I don't know if that's the proper unit to play this, because if you're not shutting down the eco of NyanRacingCat at all, this isn't going to be cost-effective in the long run.
Yep. Looks like GiveUA is not going to allow any raids coming back to his side. King does end up falling to that crossbow mass, and you can see the military numbers starting to favor Nyan with the trades that are happening.
Yeah, when you look at the destroyed value, sometimes that metric is janky, but in this case, I think it's pretty representative of what we've seen. GiveUA has a juggernaut economy, and he's been using that to shut down some of the food available to NyanRacingCat. But at the same time, Nyan barely lost any troops, and he's been progressively building up a rather powerful army.
Yeah, I see this happen all the time, especially when you're like trying to raid Mongols trade, and they lose a couple traders, but then you're losing units, and then all of a sudden they're, have an onslaught of troops. But GiveUA is in a spot that might not find himself wanting to be in for long, trying to run away with the men-at-arms, trying to fall back with the crossbows as well, splitting up the unit mass, and again, will still be trickling down some of these units, most likely.
And GiveUA had gold issues. Like, he's floating so much food, but he didn't really have a lot of gold to work with. He actually moved to the major gold mine in the middle of the map.
Yeah, he does have one on the backside, so he's on 2 different veins, but securing up that middle gold will be necessary for the long run. Obviously, English, they're a less gold-intensive civ, but you still need gold for imp upgrades and a lot of things down the road.
I wonder if he's thinking about Imperial here, because he's got such a huge food bank, and men-at-arms aren't particularly gold-heavy. So there is no reason for him not to make men-at-arms here. But if he's trying to go into Imperial and he gets hit on this gold mine, that could be terrible.
Oh, no. And just as you say that, there's another little mass that gets spotted out for Nyan. Nyan wants to get a siege workshop right near where this gold is. Mangonels are still staying hidden for the time being. One trying to set up right on the cross. Oh, man! 2 shots! Oh, my God!
That is insane. The stealth horror is just disabling the vision here for NyanRacingCat.
He didn't know.
He didn't know what was coming his way, and even the Dervish healing isn't enough to offset so much damage.
Villagers running up and away, trying to wait for the reinforcements to come, but those 2 mangonel shots from GiveUA were massive. He realizes, though, he needs to queue up some more units. He can't just be dropping imp, because Nyan still has a huge mass.
It's insane that after all this chaos, Nyan only got 2 villager picks.
Only 2 villager picks, but somehow doubling GiveUA's military mass after losing what I would think was an awful beginning trade, but by the end, it definitely ended up being okay.
Yeah, that stealth forest, that just screwed him over so badly. He had no idea that he had 2 mangonels behind it. If it's 1 mangonel, the Dervish heals up that whole army. But because it was 2, they just died instantly, and all this healing power that Nyan had was just completely neutralized.
Yep. The one thing I'm wondering, I don't think we've seen GiveUA fight one single time with the network of castles, but it is indeed Imperial Age, and it's the Windguard Palace from GiveUA.
Interesting choice. I would have thought that he was going to go Berkshire at the very front and just say, okay, I'm going to have that fortified position protecting gold, but that's not going to be the case for him. Love the walls, though. will make it much more difficult for Nyan to break in and really do any damage with the few Camel Lancers he still has left.
Yep. Nyan's trying to grab up the sacred sites, but right when he hears up that Imperial Age, it never feels good when you are going against it. Springle not quite finished there.
Interesting compositions, though, because GUA is basically just men-at-arms and 2 Mangonels. But guess what? You have 2 Springles for NyanRacing.
Oh, it was just a ground attack, it looked like, or it was just a front unit. Barely was able to miss on that.
But the Springles are coming in.
And there's a one Mangonel falls really quickly. Villagers realize they have to fall back out for gold, and GUA is on his back gold mine only now, but does have enclosures. And another great pick there by Nyan with the siege.
And now he's getting some rams going. He wants to push this. There is a side gold mine that GUA is taking, but the elite upgrades are just now coming in. Enclosures is just now coming in as well. And a concern for him is that without Mangonels, he cannot fight the crossbows. His army is exclusively men-at-arms.
Yeah, and this is really one where we've seen people, you know, I think we saw it in a game earlier from Nyan where he just stayed castle, opponent went imp, and he just said, all right, fine, I'm going to end it in castle.
A big clump of purple units to the bottom left, though. Bit of a raiding party, but they're being chased away by all these crossbows.
The perfect counter unit to chase these, and this is such a big mass from GUA that's just going to get no damage in return here.
And he was late getting the elite upgrade. He just recently queued it up. Elite army tactics also just now on the way. These are still Castle Age men-at-arms.
Yeah, so not really getting any bonus for that Imperial Age other than the enclosures, which is a key for English. Men-at-Arms still running on away, but Nyan, I think he might be surprised that there's no Berkshire at all.
Yeah.
No fire arrows coming from the Berkshire, but White Tower is never fun to try to dive either.
Yeah, it's going to be annoying. But at the same time, I wonder how much production GUA has, because we're seeing a lot of racks, nothing else. He still is going men-at-arms. He only has a couple of horsemen, not even veterans, let alone elite.
I believe that's from the Wingard Rangers is why he has the triple horseman, triple knight.
Oh, true.
Do they come out from Wingard as the elite units? I believe they should.
I don't know, actually. I don't think so. The model doesn't look like an elite unit.
It doesn't look like they are upgraded. 3 horsemen, 3 knights. It doesn't specify. I'd assume you need the upgrades.
Oh, that's bad then. These are almost useless here.
This is such an oversight I never really even thought of. And he's getting all the upgrades for his melee infantry. Mangonel shots from Nyan.
He's got 60 units garrisoned inside the ram, though. What is he up to? He just popped them.
Jumps on out. It was crossbows, but this is all under the White Tower. This is all under the network of castles, maybe even citadels from GUA, and he has all of his reinforcements coming in. Nyan has taken a fight that I don't think he should have, and now this all turns completely upside down. GUA clears the mass and just heads straight for Nyan's base.
This was the worst possible fight, partly because these crossbows, this is a group of crossbows, and there's another one to the north. The guys that have been chasing the men-at-arms, they weren't participating in this. And even if they were there, it would have been a tough fight. Network of castles. And the crossbows were dropped in a melee, basically, against all these men-at-arms. So many things went wrong here for NyanRacingCat.
Yeah, you can tell GUA kind of feeling confident here, just running across the map with all of these units. And Nyan doesn't really have an answer. He's not Imperial Age. He has his mass there ready and available, but they're about to just be severely out-teched, and he's close to chopping through that wall as well.
Well, he can just blast through the wall.
Looks like some of the Springle that never got built gets taken on out, and GUA taking the fight on the front side.
There is a group of units coming from the north.
This is looking like a really solid fight for GUA, but there's still another set of those crossbows, like you said.
Yep.
Waiting, ready, watching. GUA just now spots him out, having to fall back. Nyan is holding.
He is. He is still stuck in Castle Age, but GUA needs a different kind of a unit. Man-at-Arms will not cut it. He is making a switch into Horsemen, though, and I think that could be the deciding factor here.
Nyan does at least have that front line of spears, because the spears will be that deterrent. Crossbow mass is up at 43, though.
This is a nasty force. Like, crossbows are a really good backline unit under all circumstances, not just against heavy units. So as long as you have those spearmen in front to deal with the horsemen, this is still a terrifying army.
It does look like some of those horsemen have started to get some upgrades, though, finally for GUA, so they will not be those super weak horsemen like we initially saw.
Nyan now wants to go into Imperial, and he's at 2,400 food per minute. If nothing else, he was able to buffer up his farm transition with all these engagements.
Yeah, and we can't forget he still has that relic gold, that relic income coming in, so he's not completely out of this right now. GiveUA getting a Treb out and wanting to siege down the base of Nyan.
And the gold miners have to flee once again. The last few minutes, we've seen quite a lot of villager kills here by Nyan. He's up to 15, and he's able to shut down the gold to the left, and the only reason why GiveUA has gold right now is because he managed to sneak out to the right.
Yeah, and if Nyan gets vision of that, but GiveUA, potential return rate, really quick reaction by Nyan. Formation shuffle made it to where I don't think any of the villagers really even got hit by some attacks.
GiveUA made a very quick pivot to Horseman. He's up to 20, but they are not elite and they don't have biology. I feel like this might be a bit of a premature fight here.
Oh, and the split screen shows a few crossbows on the backside again. Could be a little bit of a better unit, but this crossbow mass in the center is starting to get surrounded. Looks like GiveUA is breaking on through, and the Horsemen are not going to be easy for just crossbows to clear. No spears there. GiveUA might just be able to push through after this one.
Yeah, it's brute force now, despite the lack of upgrades here for the Horsemen. It's just a swarm of units, and NyanRacingCat doesn't have a second layer behind this. GiveUA had that juggernaut, the English food eco, 3,000 plus food per minute, and it's showing on the battlefield.
Oh, Nyan finally throws in the towel. GiveUA takes game number 1 of this best of 5.
What a game, really. Back and forth all along. You really get the feel that things started going bad for Nyan when he was slowed down in that early Castle Age period. Like, those initial groups of crossbows, they just slowed him down and prevented him from accessing the berries. That just kind of nuked a lot of his momentum. And that one critical fight underneath the White Tower just looked like, by the time he recovered from that, it was too late. He had to basically choose between going into Imperial or remassing his army.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never a fun trap when you get an age behind and you're like, I need to keep producing, but I need to age up. And that's exactly where he took a really bad trade and kind of felt over from there. Also, English never really got damaged too much. It felt nice being able to GiveUA just sitting back with that farming eco. Like you said, I think it was at 3,600 food per minute at the end.
I don't know how aggressive he's going to play this, because one thing to highlight with Prairie is that it's very easy to deny resources. Probably one of the easiest maps, if not the easiest map when it comes to resource denial.
And you know what, Civ is great at some resource denial? It is the Mongols. They are known for their tower rushing. They're known for kind of taking some map control and then being able to trade behind it, being able to build that little bit of eco. So let's see if it will indeed be a tower rush this game.
With the color green, we have NyanRacingCat playing as a Delhi, and on the other side, GiveUA with the Mongols in purple. So NyanRacingCat swapping up his color over here. Gotta love that he's playing green Delhi, though, so I guess the aesthetics are there.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is. I know a lot of players are like, oh, when I play Biz, I'm purple. When I play French, I'm blue. And sometimes, that gives you that comfortability level. You don't want to change some things up if you're used to doing it. Moss being dropped. Cannot forget to queue up those techs, as I have seen plenty of times. Plenty of players make the same mistakes, even at the highest elos.
Oh, of course. Sometimes it just happens. It's an early mill, but nothing beyond that. Really, the first pivot point over here for NyanRacingCat is going to be that Feudal Age age-up. Is he actually going to go for the Dome of Faith again? I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, I think he might kind of go with the Tower of Victory here, but especially because Mongols, they can kind of choose to play this in a few different ways. And Tower of Victory, I think where people always forget about it, it's not just the archers that get the attack speed. It makes your spearmen a lot more effective as well.
Yeah, so far no aggression coming out of GiveUAnxiety, though.
Nope, he gathered that wood on up, and I believe it might just be an early pastures next to his TC, as I don't see anything out there on the Uvu.
Early pastures would be interesting.
No, it's not. It's a bear. Okay.
Okay, so he's opening racks, which is interesting in a way. You are probably expecting a Ghazi Raider opening from the Delhi here, but then again, you don't necessarily need those spearmen to defend just yet, and aggressing your opponent with spears, especially with a barracks that's this light, I guess the best thing that you could do with this is kind of try to harass your opponent and maybe force an earlier range than planned for NyanRacingCat.
Yeah, and the thing with if he follows this up, you know, with the typical tower rushes, is Delhi's a Civ, they don't care as much about their gold. But one thing on this map especially that is very, very scary is if you start getting denied from wood, you can just lose right then and there. And looking at NyanRacingCat's wood line, that might be an easy focal point from GUA.
That's a lot of sheep, though, for NyanRacingCat. I just took a brief look at his scout, and he definitely had a great sheep hole, which also implies that GUA might not have had the best of Dark Ages.
But you can't forget, though, that this is Prairie. Wow. But, oh my, 27. Yeah, there's no way there's going to be in the same.
Yeah, okay. Well, yep.
Oh my.
27-9, and that's going to haunt GUA a lot. That means that he needs to invest into early pastures because, I mean, the hunt is very far away. It doesn't really have berries anywhere close either, and really that has to feel so good for NyanRacingCat.
Spears just hanging out, ready and waiting. Now is the time to drop the outpost as the villagers arrive. Wood is in the bank, and the Tower Victory is only about halfway up, and I love this tower positioning. It is such a prime time spot here from GUA.
That is a nasty tower, and it's a very problematic tower for NyanRacingCat. Because if that tower goes up, he's going to be cut off from the berries. Luckily, he's got a lot of sheep to fall back onto, but it's going to be very annoying if you get your berries denied so early.
And I'm not as afraid of the berries as I am about the wood line. You said it might force a really quick archery range. Look at how much wood Nyan has right now. There's no ability for a range.
Yeah, that's a point of concern. For now, he's just taking stragglers. He finally drops off the sheep. At least he's not going to have any food issues, but anything beyond that remains to be seen. And GiveUAnxiety decides to go up with the silver tree over here. Neutral markets conveniently located in the corners. A lot of great opportunities for trading, and we've actually seen this from NyanRacingCat, I do believe, in one of the previous series. Him being able to split the traders between two markets meant that his opponent actually struggled to really shut down the trade all around.
Yep. Looks like that front outpost does end up going up. Villager not going to head on for another outpost, but instead just tuck tail and head on home.
Yeah, tower goes up, and I guess that's the big win here for GiveUAnxiety. You could have argued for a second tower, but I feel like the value is already here for the first one, and the second one, maybe you deny that wood line, but then again, this map has a lot of small wood lines, so maybe the investment wouldn't actually pay off over there for GiveUAnxiety.
Yeah, as the Delhi, you know, you have a couple different routes to take. You obviously have these scholars, and once GUA walks away, doesn't have the outpost upgraded, that's the time to dive, pull a couple scholars, do some healing, and a lot of times you won't even see any units be lost.
Yeah, upgrades are slowly trickling in here for the Delhi player, but I guess the concern for him, and this is what these spearmen were able to accomplish, is that he had to open archers. That's not usually how you open with the Delhi. Usually you have a couple of Ghazi Raiders out, and because the Delhi player is playing archers, it becomes very legitimate for GUA to invest heavily into the trade.
And sure enough, just like you said, it is an early pastures that is a necessity from GUA. You'd love to see the Mongol player maybe dropping a range, maybe dropping a stables at this point, getting Keshiks or archers himself, but no, he was forced to drop this pastures.
That's so annoying with the Mongols. The pastures are big investment as well, and it just makes your life so much more miserable in early game. Having to invest, what is that, 125 wood or so?
150, I think, the pastures.
Yeah, it's basically comparable to production building. You are conceding a new unit type, the ability to make a new unit type, for instance, by just having to go for a single pasture.
Yep, exactly. Nyan hasn't yet been able to kind of start breaking out of his base. GUA still doing some great scouting with that con, and Silver Tree has been set, locked down in the location, so probably going to see some trades start to be produced.
Ghazi Raiders are on the way for NyanRacingCat, so this is where things could get interesting. GUA, he is adding his own stable as well, but in this matchup in particular, Keshik won't fare that well because Ghazi Raiders will be getting their bonus against those heavy units.
Yeah, and some might say, well, whoa, the Keshik have the healing, the Keshik have the extra armor. It's like, yeah. Delhi has healing as well, so these are high elo players. Nyan can easily pull back some of those low health Ghazis and then go hang out next to a scholar and get some healing.
For sure. at the end of the day, he will want to overwhelm the Keshik. He doesn't want those low HP ones to get away. Because indeed, the worst thing that can happen is if the Keshik stay alive because of the healing, but you end up losing your Ghazi Raiders. At the end of the day, those are very uncomfortable trades for you. So you either want to indeed pull back the injured Ghazi Raiders or just have the critical mass, which allows you to quickly take out Keshik before they can really heal.
Yep, still haven't seen any traders get into queue, I don't believe. I think GiveUA's, even with that pasture, starting to run pretty low on the sheep, so might even need to drop another pastures.
Things are getting dicey here for GiveUA. He's got the silver tree, but he's getting zero value out of it. And because he has to invest into the pastures so much, his feudal age is just atrociously slow. When you look at the military build-up, he's 5 spearmen, 2 Keshik. He was on 5 spearmen 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, he's only been able to produce a few Keshik. Meanwhile, Nyan, we just saw 1-1-1. He's producing archers, he's producing spears, and he has a few Ghazi already out on the field.
I love these walls, though. I feel like one of the issues that we had for NyanRacingCat in the previous game was all these raids before the walls were completed. And as a consequence, he was slowed down in his game plan so much. If he can get these walls finished, and he can continue to apply this pressure, GiveUAnxiety is the one that's being slowed down by the lack of accessible food. So this could give a lot of momentum over here for NyanRacingCat. It looks like he's just backing up the silver tree and heading home.
Yeah, and at this point, I really would have loved just to see the deer stones instead. Think about all this economy at home that would have been a little bit quicker, a little bit speedier, a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, it's a tricky choice, though, right? Because at the time he picked that landmark, I think he was hoping that he can get some more trade going, but things just didn't go his way.
Yeah, you can see how fast, though, Nyan has been chopping through some of those wood lines, already onto another back wood line, because he's pumping archers, pumping production, getting everything he can out. Silver Tree running back to the other location, going back on into the corner, and now those Keshik are starting to circle and pulling the slower units out.
Archer buildup is pretty steady for NyanRacingCat, though, and when he's got the spearmen to escort them, it's going to be painful to deal with. But it looks like GiveUAnxiety is going to start coming in with a couple of Mengadai.
Wow, so this is going to be normal Mengadai. They do not have the Khan Hunter ability because he did not go with the deer stones here.
Yeah, I was a little confused about the icon because honestly, we see Mengadai so rarely that I wasn't even sure if it's like actually Mengadai or kind of hunter.
Was able to get the bounty from the mill.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Wall's getting close to finish. That spear being annoying almost picked up a villager, but what he did do was allow these Keshiks to have a nice follow-up. Villagers need to run for Nyan. Spears are trying to chase down on the backside.
GiveUA is doing a good job disrupting the plans of Nyan, though. Same thing as previous game. Nyan's got a good start, but now he's being slowed down by all these raids.
Yeah, and this should really, I feel like this should give him the ability to start that trade like we talked about, but instead he is just keeping on the aggression. He is building more and more Keshiks.
He moved the landmark back into the corner, though. I think that signals you that GiveUA is getting ready to get that trade back up. Now, the problem with the Mengadai here is that they're very fragile and awfully expensive.
And one almost just immediately gets taken out by the Archer Mask, because that's the correct counter. I know Horsemen sound like the counter, but unfortunately, most of the times when you kind of see it play out, it's almost even trades with Horsemen to Mengadai.
Exactly. Horsemen work reasonably well against Mengadai, especially when you consider cost efficiency, but foot archers just decimate them. Now, granted, if NyanRacingCat has his base open, the run-bys with the Keshiks and the Mengadai will be devastating. So, seeing the Mengadai, seeing the Keshik, I feel like NyanRacingCat really needs to prioritize making walls.
Yeah, and we saw him finish up those bottom side. Keshik have circled. There's a few spear here, and we're able to pick up one of the Keshik, but now the front line has been cleared. The Ghazi should be cleared, and the few archers as well.
Villagers were pulled in time, though. Some idle time is forced, but no villager casualties out there. And at the same time, this was a trade here. NyanRacingCat decided not to pull back his army so that he can clean the tower up. But this is the problem over here. You have walls on the left side, but it doesn't matter if you don't have anything defending the front, so the Keshik or the Mengadai can just run past.
Yeah, but having the tower, the outpost now taken out, allows Nyan to take the home resources again, take that closer wood line, get back on the front side of berries. But it looks like Nyan wants to start heading across the map and get some aggression going.
He should, because this is annoying to deal with, but for now his eco is functional. At the same time, GiveUA has been banking resources, and he's now starting to add that trade. Nyan will need to find a way to clean this up.
Have you ever seen wedge formation used for archers?
No.
Okay, I saw that. Cal just hovered over that, and I was like, I have no idea what that actually does.
Might have been just missed. Like, whichever way. Here's the thing: GiveUA is annoying with these raids, but he's not actually actively killing eco, and he's not even actively denying resources for the time being. Nyan needs to find a way to clean this up, though, and it's going to be progressively more difficult. So, when or if he cleans this up, he's going to need to wall this northern side, because the next wave is going to be even more devastating.
Yeah, was able to pick up a few bounty bonuses, has 3 traders out now, but more important, I swear, GiveUA looked like he had castle resources a second ago. 6 Skeshers in queue.
Yeah. For a moment, I was thinking that he was going to go castle like a couple of minutes ago, but it looks like he's just doubling down on feudal age here, as he should, I feel. One thing to highlight here is that NyanRacingCat doesn't have a single sacred site with the Delhi.
Hasn't even thought about going out. Couldn't think about going out to grab one of those sacred sites.
And this is why GiveUA is happy reinvesting into this. It's a really good setup when the Delhi player isn't able to get the gold from the sacred sites. And you know that you have a finite amount of food on these berries. So, GiveUA, remember, pastures were a big investment, but now it's a consistent and long-term source of food for him, unlike the berries for the Delhi.
Oh, really good pickup here for Nyan. GiveUA split off some of his army. GiveUA had the perfect counter units. Or sorry, Nyan had the perfect counter units and able to take down a lot of GiveUA's army. You can see the numbers really starting to climb for Nyan. I feel like he's at the point where bring a scholar out. Come grab this middle sacred site. Use the infantry to drop a quick wall around as well.
Nyan has double the army and he's moving up. But the problem is that he's being distracted back at home once again. Another batch of Keshik went into his eco.
No way move! No way move! Oh!
But nice pincer.
Oh, that could have been so much worse. There were still tons of spears there. Those Keshik, they're not, you know, Royal Knights.
Oh, the lumberjacks.
Ooh. The wood-working villagers are a little bit further out as well. Nyan is starting to become the aggressor. Nyan is starting to put the pedal to the metal and take down some of GiveUA's villagers, take down some of GiveUA's army, and wants this fight right here.
Yeah, he's looking for the fight over here, and Spearmen, they will be fighting against the Kashyyyks. This is not a fight that GiveUA should be comfortable with.
Villagers even pulling their shivs. GiveUA says, I need everything I can to take this fight. I'm down in the numbers, but I think the shivs were able to help clear up those spears, and he didn't really lose many villagers for that.
That's the problem here for NyanRacingCat. In that fight, I feel like he should have focused the Veils with the archers, and even if he loses the archers, if he trades them to a dozen villagers, that's a good trade. But when the dust settles, villager count is actually better for GiveUA still, and so much of NyanRacingCat's army was just destroyed.
And look at how many Keshik GiveUA was able to keep alive. It's going up to the 20 number, and now GiveUA still going to be able to kind of pull back, heal those up, use that mobility, and it felt like Nyan, right when he was starting to get that foot forward, has to immediately fall back again.
I don't get the archer choice, by the way. Nyan is very heavy on archers for a player that's barely facing anything but Keshik.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those oversights where you're just lacking the change. You know, you're not reacting to what you're seeing. You're not reacting to what your opponent's doing. You're just used to playing your game this way. You're used to going, oh, I'm going spear archer and some Gazis, just that kind of 1-1-1.
I mean, I'm fine with a spear and archer. The problem is that when you're facing so many Keshik, it's more of the spear, less the archer. But here, you feel like he's building up a huge force of archers. But Spearman, now he's got 17. Finally, these walls come up, though, and this could be a game changer for him.
This was needed so bad. You can see he's already prepping villagers to move out, but I don't think there's enough spears here to clear this Keshik mass. Might not be a fight GiveUA wants to take, though.
And Keshik will just flee. Spearman will push them away. But again, idle time is being enforced on NyanRacingCat. And this is exactly what GiveUA wants. Like, he's slowly building up the trade, although it looks like our traders keep getting intercepted. One thing that Nyan was doing really well was using small groups of Ghazi raiders to kind of keep that trade in check.
Yeah, there's only 3 traders out and about. Keshik diving into some of those spears, none taken down. But you can just see now a couple different raiding parties, couple different groupings, and GiveUA starting to get archers of his own.
Uh-oh, Nyan could be surrounded here from two sides. The Keshik from the south are closing in, so are the ones from the north, and not all the spearmen are here to help out.
And this is where it's so hard for that Archer Mass and Nyan to focus on the units that they should be. Keshik are in melee range of them. Spear's able to kind of close the gap a little bit, but GiveUA decided to move into melee range with his own archers. Circle back around from the Keshik, and looks like GiveUA should be able to just clean this forward mass from Nyan.
A lot of the Keshik are very heavily backed up, but they're not killed, and this is critical. At the end of the day, the destroy value is kind of close. Army count is still even, but GiveUA is able to retain so many of the Keshik that he had really no business keeping alive.
Yeah, you can't forget that there's been 10 Ghazi that have never been in these fights, and Ghazi would be the perfect counter to not only the Keshik, but the archers as well that kind of take your front line.
17 spears, 10 Ghazi Raiders. If Nyan wants to, he can take this fight.
I just feel like this was almost like what happened last game. Not all the units were together. We saw 10.
He's going to lose the Veils.
5 villagers falling right after the outpost falls, and there's no getting out of that big of a surround.
I don't get why he's detaching the horsemen now, or the Ghazi Raiders. Like, spearmen are fine, but he could annihilate this army if he focuses all his efforts here. And he kind of needs to, because now he just lost a bunch of villagers, and his opponent is aging to castle.
I think he might have seen some of the deer start getting taken.
Ooh, that could be big, though. Right to the north, that could be his ticket back into this game.
Oh, you know what probably happened, though? Khan might have just given GiveUA the notice before the Ghazi arrived.
Still a really good raid, though. This is what NyanRacingCat needs. He needs it so desperately, now that GiveUA is going into castle.
I feel like those Ghazis swung a few times and just didn't do as much damage as I was expecting. No villagers really fell.
And that's a problem. After all these raids and after all this aggression from NyanRacingCat, he only has 4 villager kills. And that also just tells you how good of a job GiveUA did when it comes to keeping these alive and quickly responding to all these raids.
Yeah, has been able to multitask just so well. Ghazi's running by the main team.
Oh no.
Keshik able to spot out the massive chop through, and I see another 5 to 7 villagers on the ground, and that's not going to be it. Nyan is getting hurt.
This could be the game here for Nyan. He's down 1 H, he's down 20 eco with a massive breach on his walls. If the Keshik just dive the villagers, his eco is just going to be shattered.
Yeah, not too much he can do from here. It was looking good for him for a second, but that huge mass in the middle earlier,
he could try base trading at this point.
I think that's exactly what he's going to try doing. Look at how many, and look at his numbers. GiveUA, I feel like, needs to just start. Actually, Men-at-Arms doesn't work because of that many Ghazis. I don't even know what to say at this point.
I think Men-at-Arms might be his best choice, or maybe Spears, honestly, just try to trade, but it's going to be tricky. Kurotai goes up, but this is a nasty force, and this is going to be tough to deal with.
GiveUA having to respect it. He's pulling the Keshik back, and once the Keshik grouping arrives, maybe, just maybe, this goes a little bit.
It's a landmark snipe. Look at the dots on the minimap. He's pulling the whales. Oh!
We didn't even get to see it.
It's such a shame because you felt like there was a chance.
I felt like there could have been, and it's one where we've seen it time and time again. Sometimes the reaction isn't quite quick enough. Sometimes villagers fall, and it actually is a base trade, but then Nyan gets to stabilize at home.
I really wanted to see that play out, though, because to be fair, GiveUA didn't have an army that was able to stand and fight against that many Spears and Ghazi Raiders. So you could argue that, you know, you could try to take the landmark snipe attempt here. But really, I feel like one of the key things that we've seen in both of these games is that GiveUA was able to disrupt NyanRacingCat in critical moments.
Yep.
And even if Nyan built up a lead of some sort, that lead kind of disappeared because of all these delays.
Yeah, it really felt like GiveUA's playing GiveUA's game. It's that kind of 3-4 different control groups disruption. Right when Nyan started to move forward, thought he had that leg up. Well, there's another Keshik mass. Oh, there's another Keshik mass. And then time and time again just made and I think one of the things too that GiveUA realized was that he had so many Keshik staying alive that he was able to just keep it going no problem.
Well, just looking at the maps over here, by the way, we had the Prairie and we had Cauldron being picked. Both were the home maps of NyanRacingCat. So even if he wins this one, from here on out, we're going to be playing on the home maps of GiveUAnxiety, and that's you know, always a little problematic if you think about it. okay, maybe you're getting back in this set. Your opponent is still a match point, and they still have 2 of their maps to play on.
Yep, and it's not like one of these things where GUA at this point too could always go, hey, he could have used Ottomans as a throwaway civ potentially if he wanted to kind of set up some of the next structures, give himself some favorability there. But again, Nyan choosing a different color than the previous game. He's going back to orange, spawning in as the Japanese, and GUA still sticking with purple, playing as the Chinese.
I'm very curious about the opening of both of these players here, because this could be one of those games where the game is decided in the first 5 minutes. Some of these games weren't like that, but here, whatever happens with that pond in the middle could easily be the one thing that decides the outcome of this game very quickly.
And you said whatever happens with that pond, it looks like GUA is letting it go for the time being. He has enough for a barracks, though, so I think that... Oh, maybe not.
We are going to have a dock out here. Now, one thing I love about this dock is that it also acts as a drop-off point for you, and you have 2 very nice depots of shorefish. So if you're NyanRacingCat, you could maybe even justify having an extra villager or 2 out there for shorefishing. He's just going to have 1. But it looks like GiveUAnxiety is just going to sit back and play the most standard Chinese possible. I love the mill on the deer pack, though. This reminds me a lot to Hill and Dale, where you can just go on deer immediately and supervise your mill. Gives you a very strong early food economy.
Yeah, surprisingly, he's on the sheep, and the main reason being, and this is one where I've seen a lot of Chinese players and heard them talk about this, you miss out on the tax drop-offs when you're on the deer because you have so much food.
Yeah, this was math done long ago, in the very early days of Chinese. Indeed, if you need the tax, you need the sheep food. But eventually, as you see, those deer will be killed. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we started shooting them at this point. And once we get to the stage where he no longer needs that much of a tax income, he's going to refocus the villagers on the deer.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily needing that much of a tax income. You also get to this point where you got a lumber camp, you got a barracks, you got all these other things that are providing taxes as well. So you can afford to get a little bit of a slower tax drop-off because you have some of that built up everywhere else. And finally, the barracks. I thought this was going to be coming earlier, but he focused in on the village first, and he was still staying on the wood line. So I knew he wanted to contest water. You can't let Japan go water uncontested here.
Now, here's the thing. Because Nyan went for a dock early on, that kind of delays his feudal age. He's moving on to gold already. I think this might be because he's afraid of aggression coming towards his gold, and he just wants to pile it up. Because he's going to have a lot more gold than what he needs. He's still so far away in terms of the food needed for feudal. So I guess he's just going to pile up the gold and then pull the villagers away. Nevertheless, because his feudal age is delayed, he's nowhere close to being able to respond to this spearman aggression. Unless he makes his own spearman, of course.
Yeah, and one of the things we saw earlier was Nyan Scout immediately went to GUA's base. He was like, all right, what do I have to expect? Well, he didn't see a barracks. And then he pulled away. He went around, grabbed sheep, dropped it off at home, and now he's about to be shocked by the spearman play.
And that's always problematic, right? And maybe that was the reason why GUA delayed his racks a little. You kind of know the timing of your opponent checking out your base. And if you've actually spotted the enemy scout coming in and leaving, that kind of gives you the intel to say, listen, my opponent is gone. I can do something that he's not going to have vision on.
And that villager is going to be able to escape GUA, letting that one go, making sure he is getting as much damage on this dock as he possibly can.
It's Coca Township for NyanRacingCat, though, and that's going to be a perfect way to clean up all these spearmen.
Yeah, and this is one where those Shinobi, they trade much better into the Spearmen than expected. It takes quite a few of them, and so it's just going to be nice and easy. And this is where Nyan's timing is pretty good.
Yeah, now one thing I dislike about the Coca Township approach here is that I feel like on this map and in general, Kura Storehouse has such a great amount of longevity with all these farms being spawned. Sure enough, the Coca Township is going to help with the Shinobi and kind of keeps your dock alive. Maybe you lose the dock, but you can rebuild it. It gives you that early field age map control. But the point is that in the long run, the Coca Township is the weaker of the two landmarks.
Yeah, and you're definitely correct. And the thing is with the Kura Storehouse, he's not as needing with those earlier farms, that earlier potential food and whatnot because he's got that shoreline fish like you were just talking about. GiveUA, though, has been able to get a significant amount of damage. That Coca Township is just now finishing, and GiveUA, he's actually planning, prepping, and making sure that Nyan isn't going to be able to retake that pond because he's dropping a dock of his own.
And that's good timing because he is going to get the feudal very shortly with the villagers rushing up the buildings. I would love to see a Barbican in the middle, actually. Like, that would give you such a good amount of firepower on the shoreline, but it looks like he's just going to go Academy in the Academy back at home. Makes some sense, especially if you're facing Shinobi. But here's the thing. Even though Shinobi do get bonus against melee units, you're not just facing 1 or 2 spearmen, you're facing a horde of them.
Yeah, and now GiveUA is going ahead and burning down that forge, making sure that Nyan can't get back onto that gold anytime soon. Nyan trying to rush down a archery range. But one thing we know about those Yumis is usually you need a little bit of some extra bannermen to make them a little bit more effective.
Yumi is such a terrible early game unit. It's the direct opposite of a quality unit. It really is one that you like to swarm with, and one that really needs that bannerman to buff it.
GiveUA able to finish up his feudal age, able to get the forge burnt on down, and additionally should be able to start reinforcing the middle water. I think he already has some fishing boats out, or might even queue up a just one kind of galley here just to delay any potential redocking.
And this is now getting dicey here for NyanRacingCat because you see he's barely able to get out of his base. In fact, he is just now kind of working towards resecuring this gold mine, but he's unable to finish the tower. He needs to rebuild this forge as well. And at the end of the day, this is, again, the same thing we talked about. Delay, delay, delay. And while this is happening, GiveUA basically secured the pond.
Yeah, and think about what those Shinobi have done. Basically nothing. They've taken a little bit of damage. Now the archers are the ones that really pushed away the spearmen. The Shinobi are there just to make sure they run on away.
Exactly, that's the thing, right? Like, and now, because you went for the Coca Township, you kind of need to get something out of the Shinobi. Oh no, the villagers actually ran into the spearmen.
Oh.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
That was just like a perfect... it's weird because Nyan saw exactly where the spearmen were going. Villagers, though, those are just spearmen going to be able to escape with their lives, albeit not in the most healthy spot.
Nyan has a lot of food but no gold, but he just sent a dozen villagers on gold. He wants to go to Castle Age over here. Imagine how useful the Kura storehouse would be right now. Being able to get those farms and just kind of replacing that lost out food eco. Remember, it's not just... the fact that you have those farms for free. It's the fact that the farms for Japanese are boosted by the town centers.
Exactly, exactly. Spearman still just proving to be an annoyance, distracting Nyan, while GiveUA goes up with Song Dynasty. Very conservative Barbican behind this. It wasn't in the middle, like you said, protecting up that fishing. So Nyan could potentially have a castle timing and try to deny the middle pond as well, kind of delay all that investment that GiveUA put into it.
Actually, I absolutely hate this for GiveUA. He doesn't have a combat ship in the middle, I think, which means that the Shinobi will get rid of that dock in a second. He just now got into Song Dynasty. He's up by 3 wheels, which is nice and cool. But Nyan is going to Castle here.
And he is redocked.
He is redocking. He's going to have mounted samurai roaming the map. And he is going to have all these relics for himself. This is looking really good suddenly for NyanRacingCat.
Yep, Shinobi able to get that burn onto the middle dock. Nothing able to be produced out of that while it is while it's being demolished. And I think he had a second Shinobi somewhere. And I believe with 2 Shinobi, you can kind of essentially make it to where that dock's never going to be able to have enough time to produce a ship or get anything else out of it.
And this is the thing, right? Like, if he had 1 galley out here, this would not be happening. Floating gate is now on the way. At least GiveUA is getting the value out of these fishing boats. And he's not getting some Chukenu going. But at the same time, his opponent is going to be in Castle Age. And we've seen how devastating Mounted Samurai can be supported by Yorishiros. And it's not like GiveUA has a lot of things that can deal with those guys. Like, he basically is going to be forced to play Spearman if he wants to play against the Mounted Samurai.
Yeah, and he has 7 Chooks in queue as we speak. So it's kind of like thinking, oh, I need to counter out these archers. I'm going to just go with my own archer mass. Chooks are great in a huge, huge mass at dealing with some units, but it still never feels good. Sometimes you kind of get stuck in this feudal age for a little bit longer than you want to be.
that is a terrible stable spot. It's very far away from the floating gate, and it's up front. This is the worst case scenario, because if that if the Shinto priest gets shut down before placing the Yorishiro, this whole plan falls apart for NyanRacingCat.
Looks like Yorishiro is going to make
just in time.
Place it in, please. Place it in.
Sir?
He's like, there's a tree in my way. I don't know. I can't see it.
Okay, there we go. Looks like you get a pillar at the edge of the model when you place it in there. I didn't know that.
I did not either. And the first mountain center, they just come out so fast once it's placed on in there.
It's ridiculous, but you're going to be careful about the quantity of this Chukunu. It's the same thing with the Shinobi versus the Spearman. You have a much more superior unit, but raw numbers could be nasty. And, you know, as much as I kind of critique GUA for not having any combat ships here, same goes for NyanRacingCat. Imagine if he has a junk or a war junk right here to just kind of start chipping away at some of these units.
Yeah, it's just one that you have to always be paying attention. It makes it so much harder to path your units for reinforcements, because if they walk towards that middle pond at all, it is very, very scary. And I'm shocked that neither player's got an arrow slits either.
Yeah, or a demo. This map in particular, as your units are pathing right by the pond, a well-placed demo could easily sink half of the opponent's army.
And GUA knew that he needed some spears, so he's on triple barracks and a ton of spears in production to counter out those mounted samurai.
Yeah, I love how NyanRacingCat is going into foot samurai though, but I really feel like this is going to be a game of quality versus quantity. And I feel like with GOA being up 11 villagers, NyanRacingCat just not picking up the first relic, I would favor quantity in this matchup, not quality.
Yeah, this is one where I really feel like Japan needs to just split off one mountain samurai, get some damage, delay the next food location, and more importantly, Nyan needs to start denying this middle fishing, denying those reinforcing units, which is exactly what he's doing here now with this group.
Exactly. Step number one for him is intercepting reinforcements, kind of trying to stall out this bush just by cutting off all these new units coming in. And it would be lovely if he hit the eco, because GUA has been completely safe back at home so far.
It does look like Nyan was able to get one relic in the base. GUA dropping a ram, and remember what we said about that stables. Location of it.
True that. And it's the Yorishiro, I mean, you need that. And the Rex as well. The Rex is right next to this. All the production buildings of NyanRacingCat could be taken out in an instant. Yeah,
really, really kind of that oversight. Having to drop that back stables, needs to drop a back barracks, but where's the wood? He doesn't have the wood income. He has been able to move over and sneak out to some...
He pulled all the lumberjacks. He's got one lumberjack.
He needs production. This could just be this perfect timing from GUA.
This is so tricky, and I absolutely love what GUA is doing over here. I think he realized that racing for Castle Age, it's not going to work, but he could just overwhelm with full Feudal Age might, and that has been the theme of this entire game. NyanRacingCat beats his opponent to the next age, gets some high-quality units out, but GUA already has raw numbers, and he's able to overwhelm. Now GUA is getting ready for Castle Age himself.
Yeah, good pullback from Nyan. GUA left his rams, though, so I'm surprised Nyan didn't try to close the gap, get some quick burns, and keep the barracks alive, which isn't yet down.
And now villagers are getting picked off underneath the town center. It's a 16 eco lead for GiveUAnxiety. He is so close of securing this series and having to face his own brother in the next round.
Dropping the astronomical clock tower, so it will not still be this quality versus quantity, as some of that quantity is going to get a little bit more quality to it.
Exactly, like GUA has been able to just push his opponent all the way back to the starting town center with Feudal Age troops. Imagine what happens when the Castle Age upgrade comes in, and you see Yorishiro is just now finishing. This barracks has been working without it, and it's once again so many precious seconds lost here for NyanRacingCat.
Oh, and speaking of loss for NyanRacingCat, it is the final game from them. We can see them talking it over after, and what a series. The first 3-0 of the day.
And what a comfortable series here for GiveUAnxiety. NyanRacingCat is going to be said goodbye to as a top 6 player here. He had a really good run today. He played 2 series, and he had some very memorable moments. But this time around, it's GiveUAnxiety moving ahead. And Well,
Oh, look at that thing. Oh my gosh. Someone's got to screenshot that. Go ahead and get that one going. Oh, that might be a new emoji on the channel there.
I want to hear the backstory of that, because he's been comfortable in this series, but that move felt like, dude, thank goodness I'm done with this.
That seemed like a huge sigh of relief, like it was tight back and forth, which there was a ton of tight back and forth. The 3-0s never feel like 3-0s during when we're casting them, then when we're these back and forths, because there's always just these one split-second decisions that could make it go the other way.
Well, hello. Congratulations here, moving on to the top 4. How are you feeling, especially knowing that you're about to face off against your very own brother in the next round?
Yeah, it feels amazing. Yeah, this whole tournament's been like a dream tournament, put together, and NA LAN has been a dream of mine and Soldiers for like a really long time. So the fact that I'm here is amazing. And going into it, obviously, I was thinking like, I wasn't sure how I was gonna do, and I was thinking like, oh man, like best case scenario, me and Soldier are fighting it out for like 3rd place. And yeah, it's happening, so it's wild.
It's crazy, right? I just want to go back to one of the things that happened right after this series. We were watching your cam just after the series ended, and it felt like you just had a big sigh of relief. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always obviously more nerve-wracking playing at a LAN. I'll sometimes get a little nervous playing, tournaments at home. But usually it doesn't affect me too much, and I don't know. Here I'm like nervous, but in a different way. It's like so my heart rate isn't like increasing.
Oh, wow.
I've had sometimes where like I feel like my heart's like beating fast, but my hands keep like my hands get really clammy sometimes. I feel like I keep like wiping my hands. I'm like, and yeah, I feel the nerves for sure. But yeah, it's intense. It's fun.
It's such a different feeling being on a stage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like everybody's judging you just from below, and everybody's like, wait a minute, I'm theory crafting for our next series. Speaking of which, I actually forgot what I wanted to ask. Oh, yeah. So this is something that we've been discussing with Dapston as well as the series was going on. You're going to go into this upcoming set as someone who just finished playing. Yeah. Soldier took a break. Do you have a preference in such a setup? Like, do you prefer to just go straight in? You might be a little bit more tired, but you're very much warmed up. Or do you prefer to have that little break and maybe able to see what your opponent was doing in the previous series?
I think generally I would like to kind of go right into another series because you're just fresh and you're in rhythm. If I had to choose right now, I would actually rather have a break because I literally am sweating on stage. I feel like I could use a minute to cool down, but it will be good. Like I'll be a little more fresh. Just gotta control the nerves But I'm doing good. I'm undefeated, I guess, so far, right? I 3-0'd Filsberto, and then just 3-0'd Nyan. So yeah, I'm doing what I gotta do. So
well, I gotta ask you about this. What is the score line for the upcoming set?
Yeah, it's a good question. Soldier's a huge wild card. It's wild because he's a very talented RTS player, but he's been like semi-retired for a long time, so he plays very little compared to like all other competitive players. But he's just so good, and he's been playing a lot since the LAN, obviously. So he's probably like playing much more than he typically would be, and so he's gonna be in pretty good shape. But I'll say 3-1. I think I'm gonna 3-1 him.
Okay, 3-1. We shall see if that's going to be the case. We'll let you go so that you can take your little break here. We will also go on a short break, but we will be back with the lower bracket semifinals. GiveUAnxiety versus Soldier.
Let's go.